This expression has two variables, c and d. However, we approach it the same way we would if there were only one variable. Our first step is to determine the product, sum, and two numbers that work. To make it easier, I'll write the steps on the left-hand side and all the steps that we actually do on the right-hand side. To find the product, we must multiply the first number by the last number, in this case 2 times positive 6. We don't look at the variables until we start separating in step 2. In this case, our product is positive 12. The sum is found by looking at the middle number. Once again, not the variables, just the number. So our sum is positive 13. When I say find two numbers that work, we're trying to find two numbers that at the same time multiply to give us positive 12 and add to give positive 13. For us, those numbers are 12 and 1. Positive 12 times positive 1 is positive 12, and positive 12 plus 1 gives us positive 13. In step 2, we split the middle term, and this is where we have to focus on the variables. In place of 13CD, we're going to use positive 12 and positive 1, but we're also going to include the variables. Remember, the first term stays as it is, the last term as well, and for 13CD we write 12CD plus 1CD. Step 3, we group our four terms in groups of 2 and factor out the GCF of each group. In the first group, we have a GCF of 2C. To determine the remaining factor, we divide each term in our first group by 2C, leaving us C plus 6D. We repeat the step for the next two terms. Our GCF here is positive D, and when we divide both terms by positive D, we're left with C plus 6D. Our final step is to write our answer in factored form. Looking at the colors, we notice that C plus 6D is the common factor in both terms. This becomes our first factor in our final factored form. And secondly, we get 2C plus D from the GCFs that we factored out above. Let's try another example. This time I've placed the two variables in front of our equation, but once again, to start us off, we're still just finding the product, sum, and two numbers that work, looking at only the numbers. Our product is our first number times our last number, or 5 times positive 1, giving us a product of 5. Our sum, our middle number, which in this case is negative 6. Once again, we want to find two numbers that work, or two numbers that multiply to give us positive 5, and at the same time add to give us negative 6. This is where it can get a little more difficult, because now not only are we looking for two numbers that work, we really have to concentrate on the signs. Remember, the only way to multiply and get a positive number is to multiply two positives or to multiply two negatives. And in this case, both our answers are negative. Negative 5 times negative 1 will give us positive 5, and negative 5 plus negative 1 will give us negative 6. Step 2. Splitting the middle term, now we focus on the variables. We leave the first term the same, the last term the same, and in place of negative 6xy, we get negative 5xy and negative 1xy. Step 3, group our first two terms together and factor out the GCF. This leaves us 5xy outside of xy minus 1. Careful, a common error here is to cancel out this term. One term divided by itself will always give us 1. 5xy divided by 5xy is negative 1, not 0. Similarly, in our second group, our GCF is negative 1, and when we divide both terms by negative 1, we're left with xy minus 1. Finally, we write our answer in factored form. In yellow, we have our common factor, xy minus 1, and in blue, our second factor becomes 5xy minus 1. Thanks for listening.